Welcome to Dune, chapter by chapter. I'm Dominic. So, in the last chapter that I talked about was Paul actually and finally rode the giant sandworm. And he was still dealing with the reality that he's going to have to face off against Stilgar at some point for leadership of the tribe, which he really doesn't want to do because he thinks it's a waste of time, which it is. On top of that, they saw a strange ornithopter on patrol that they didn't know if it was a Harkonnen or not, so they decided to set a trap. So now this chapter picks up right off after the last one, and it starts off with Gurney Halleck. So Gurney Halleck is out in the desert, and so he's been spending all of his time here on Arrakis as part of a smuggling crew. So he's joined up with the smugglers. And as far as he knows, Paul and Jessica, Paul is dead, and Jessica is, I'm not sure if he knows Jessica is alive or he thinks she's dead too, but I think he thinks she's dead too. But he is convinced that Jessica is the traitor. And he doesn't know that it was actually Yue. So he's been just dedicating his life to try to get some kind of revenge on the beast Raban. So they're going deep into the desert, patrolling for spice, the smugglers. And so they see a patch that they just can't avoid. They see the sand patch. So then their ornithopters go down and scout it out. And they get the signal it's all good. So they send in the carryall. And then something happens. Their carryall and their ornithopters get shot down by rockets. And so Gurney's taken back by this. So then all of a sudden, all these Fremen spring out of nowhere and attack all the smugglers. So they're all surrounded by smugglers. There's like a fight about to break out. So then Gurney faces off against one of the Fremen, and there's something about him. He doesn't know what it is. It's familiar. And then when this Fremen removes his, his hood and his mask from a still suit, Gurney is put into complete shock because he sees that it is Paul, whom he thought was dead. He can see all the resemblances of the old Duke in his face, but he looks older now, more weathered. And it's been some time, been a few years since he last seen Paul. And so he's really put in shock because this whole time he believed Paul was dead. And so anyway, Paul asks him, tell all your men to stand down. No need for weapons with me, Gurney Halleck. And so anyway, Gurney Halleck tells all their men to stand down. And so anyway, they have this exchange. They're reunited. They hug. And then Gurney Halleck, says, oh, you're still alive. Young pop, and all that. It's just a great scene in the book. I love that scene. And it's actually a really good scene in the David Lynch film as well. When in that movie, Patrick Stewart plays Gurney Halleck. And, when they meet up, the scene's a lot shorter, but they just quickly show them fighting against the smugglers. And then all of a sudden, Paul sees that Gurney Halleck's like basically running away and calls out his name, and then that's how they get reunited in the David Lynch film. But in actuality, in the book, it's a much longer scene where they get reunited. So I'll be curious to see how they do it in the Denis Villeneuve film for part 2, which I'm having more and more confidence we're going to get. But anyway, back to the chapter. So they have this amazing reunion. And so now Paul has to figure out, okay, are any of these guys, how trustworthy are all these smugglers? So he asks Paul, or he asks Gurney, what are your men like? Are they all good men? And, can they all be trusted? And Gurney says, oh, they're all good guys and, they can be trusted. But while he's telling Paul that, he gives him a signal with his finger. And that's the old Atreides signal that tells Paul that, no, there's guys in this crew that cannot be trusted. And so anyway, but he can't say it out loud right then and there. So then Paul pulls on his lip. That's the counter signal to tell Gurney that he has it. So you can see right away, as soon as they get together, they kind of fall back into their old ways of, how the Atreides are with one another. And they pick up right off again where they left off. So anyway, they kind of round up their men, take all their weapons, and they tell them they got a hiding place. They're going to hide them in a cave so they can get them sorted out, see which guys they can trust and which guys they can't, and all that kind of thing. And then, what's interesting about this chapter is as they take the men away, and, Paul and Gurney are talking, Paul looks over the desert and he says, it's a shame that we couldn't save the carryall and the ornithopters. And now, what's interesting about this chapter, and what you got to think about the situation, is Gurney was working with these men for a while. So these were his men that got shot down and killed by the Fremen rockets. And Gurney is kind of taken back, and this comes off very cold to Gurney Halleck. And how it goes in the book is Paul says, "Too bad we couldn't save the carryall." And Gurney glanced at him, looked back at the patches of smoke and debris out on the desert where carryall and ornithopters had been brought down by Fremen rockets. He felt a sudden pang for the loss of his men and said, "Your father would have been more concerned for the men he couldn't save." Paul shot a hard stare at him, lowered his gaze. Presently, he said, "They were your friends, Gurney. I understand. To us, though, they were trespassers who might see things they shouldn't see. You must understand that." So this shows how Arrakis has changed Paul and how he's different from his father. And he's a little bit more hardened, more battle hardened, because just life is much more rougher on Arrakis than it ever could be on Caladan. And it's given Paul more of an edge, more of a ruthless edge, in my opinion, being a part of the Fremen and all that. So, but I mean, what they had to do is, these are the kind of things you have to do in Arrakis to survive. It's just the way it is. And so anyway, he feels for Gurney, but this is just how things are. So then Gurney kind of smiles at him and then says, "Okay, well, I want to see some of the things that I'm not supposed to see." And so then also in this chapter, Gurney realizes that the Fremen can ride the worms. He witnesses that in this chapter. And so then Paul tells him, nothing can stop us here in Arrakis. We control the worms. There's no storm. There's nothing. We can just barrel on through anything because we control the worms. And so we can control the desert. It's desert power on Arrakis. So now they go into the cave and they hide the carryall and conceal it so you can, or not the carryall, but the spice factory. They manage to hide that inside one of their hiding places. And so then Gurney meets Stilgar in this chapter, and they find one of Gurney's basiliets. And so then they take Gurney into their hiding spot. So once they get in there, though, there's a huge fight breaks out because some of the guys that are mixed in Gurney's crew are actually Sadukar. So they break out and there's a battle between them and some of the Fedakeen in the hiding place. So anyway, the battle breaks out and they can hear a huge commotion. Paul and Gurney run down to see what's going on. And then Stilgar saves Chani, gets her out of the way. So when they get there, there's some dead Fedakeen guys on the ground, some dead Sadukar guys on the ground, and then there are some Sadukar guys that are backed up against each other, back-to-back cornered by the remaining Fedakeen. And so anyway, Paul demands, he wants to know who this guy is, and he wants to know, what is your business? And so they don't want to say anything, the Sadukar. So Paul says, "I know that it was probably your guys' idea for the smugglers to go deeper in the desert, hoping that you would run across Fremen and you could hopefully get a chance to kill Muad'Dib." And so anyway, Gurney kind of gasps because that's exactly what happened. It was the Sadukar that suggested that they go deeper into the desert to find spice, and they concealed their identities very well. And so anyway, Paul wants to know the guy's name, so he kind of uses the voice on him so that they can get greater control. And he tells him, who, and then he tells him, I'm the rightful Duke of Arrakis. Your emperor gave me my family, this planet. And so then one of the other Sadukar, they're about to jump and attack Paul. But then the captain of the Sardaukar actually kills him, and then tries almost to use that as a bargaining chip. Hey, I just killed one of my guys to save you, so you kind of owe me. And Paul says, listen, I don't owe you anything. You came here to assassinate me. You're my prisoner. You live or die at my command. I don't owe you nothing. And so then takes him away, has their guards take him away. And then Paul decides at that moment. Korba and Gurney are there, and Korba says, what do you want us to do with them? We can't let them go or anything. We just have to kill them. The Sardaukar, the surviving ones. Instead, Paul says, no, I want you to let them escape. So they can't believe this, Korba and Gurney. Gurney grabs them, like, what are you doing? What, are you crazy? The guy's right. You got to kill them. If they escape, everyone will know that because at this point, a lot of people think Paul is dead. The Harkonnen and all that, they all think Paul is dead. But Paul says to him, well, have you noticed, Gurney, that there's a lot more guild agents on Arrakis and around Raban? And Gurney says, yeah. He said, I have noticed that. There are a lot of guildsmen on Arrakis here. I don't know what they're doing here, but they're showing a lot of interest. So then this is where we see Paul starts to formulate a plan. And he tells them, well, we're going to let them go, and they're going to go back, and they're going to tell the Harkonnens. They're going to know who Muad'Dib is. Because we control the spice. And the guild knows that. And Gurney says, but the Harkonnens control the spice. And Paul says, nope. Whoever can control a thing can destroy a thing. That's what he says to Gurney. And so Paul has a plan formulating in his mind in this chapter, a way that he can totally control the spice. And so what's interesting is the guildsmen, the space guild, the spacing guild, they have some prescience. So they can kind of see into the future. They can see future events, similar to Paul. So they fear him. They know he's capable of something. That's why they're showing so much concern, because they feel it. They can feel they're losing control of the spice. If they take control of it, the guild will be cut off, because the guild is going to be loyal to whoever can supply them with the spice. That's the weakness to the guild, is their dependence on the spice. So that's what's going through Paul's mind. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens when all the Harkonnen and everyone realizes that Paul is not dead, but he's actually Muad'Dib. So now at this point, Stilgar, they still have this thing going on with Stilgar wants to call him out, or all the other younger Fremen in the tribe want Stilgar to call Paul out. So how Paul settles it right here in this situation is Paul just says to him, Stilgar, are you going to do what's best for the tribe? And Stilgar says, well, always. So Paul just gives him his knife. Well, here, take this knife and kill me right where I stand. Challenge me right now. I'm not going to fight back, and you can just kill me right now if you want to go through with this challenge. So Stilgar doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to make of this situation. And Paul says to him, things have to change. And Stilgar says, but it's our ways, it's our custom. And then Paul points out, it was also your custom and part of your culture to kill any strangers you found wandering in the desert and take their bodies water. And you didn't do that. You took 2 of us in. And then Paul says to him, if we actually fight in combat, you can't take me. I can defeat you. That's not a boast. That's just reality. That's how Paul would be able to take Stilgar. So Paul's looking at the bigger picture here in this chapter. So then he tells Stilgar, okay, do you insert yourself in all the problems of all the families that you're a leader of your tribe that you're a leader of? And he says no. And he goes, and then Paul says to him, do you think I wish to cut off my right arm? He's, saying that's what Stilgar is to him. I need you to run this tribe, because Paul's thinking on a bigger level. They want Paul to run the tribe, but Paul's going to run the whole planet. Paul's going to be the Duke of Arrakis. I'm going to be running the whole planet here. I'm going to be the Duke of Arrakis, and Chani's going to be by my side. So I need you. That's what's best for this tribe, is for you to stay its leader. You're strong and you're wise and all that, and I need you at my side. So I'm going to be the leader of the whole planet while you're going to still remain the leader of the tribe. And so he finally sees the light. Stilgar does, and then so that's how they get past that. So then Paul wants Chani to go tell his mother and what's happening and things like that. And he wants Chani to stay because he's planning something big. Something big is going to happen here. He's planning something big, and he doesn't want Chani to be in danger. And so then the chapter ends off with Gurney realizing that Lady Jessica is alive. And he says, the witch is alive. Duncan is dead. Paul tells me, Duncan died. He died saving me and my mother. And he says, well, that's Gurney's thinking in his head. That's the thing I got to do. I got to kill the witch. And before I do it, I got to, show Paul what kind of traitor she was. So that's where the chapter ends. So pretty interesting ending. So I like this chapter. This was a good chapter. I like the reunion of Gurney Halleck and Paul Atreides. Of all the characters in the book, I really like Gurney Halleck. He's like this old, grizzled warrior. I think he's a very interesting character. And looking forward to see how he's going to be portrayed in the new movie. And, all that kind of thing. So I kind of always have my own picture of him in my head of what he looks like in the book. But it's not like Patrick Stewart, and it's not like in the new movie. It's something else. But one of my favorite characters from Dune is Gurney Halleck. So that's everything I got to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and I will see you at the next one.